Bring it to my social time.
Right. Ladies, she'll be sitting. I would like to call the Town of Rocky Hill Planning and Zoning Commission a regular meeting of September 20th, 2023 to order. Housekeeping, the members sitting are the, oh,
There you
right
go.
on time. So all the regular members are seated? Yep, that's fine.
Public meeting, agenda item A. Electric vehicle charging station. An electric component assembly or cluster of component assemblies designed specifically to charge batteries with electric vehicle. Wait, hold on a minute. Am I reading the right one?
Yeah,
There should be an intro to it, shouldn't there?
no, I think it's, it is the right one.
All right. Electric vehicle charging station, electric component assembly or cluster of component assemblies designed specifically to charge batteries with electric vehicles by permitting the transfer of electric energy to a battery or other storage device in an electric vehicle. Related definitions: direct current fast charging station, an electric vehicle charging station that utilizes direct current electricity, 40 kilowatts or greater. Level 2 electric vehicle charging station, electric vehicle charging station that supplies 208 or 240 volt alternating current. Public electric vehicle charging station, an electric vehicle charging station located at a publicly available parking space.
It's all,
I think that's
all
all,
one hearing.
one thing,
Do you
So B
run,
is
one
two?
and two, yeah.
you can do one and
Okay.
two.
A, 1, 2.
Modify section B, modify section 7B21, number of parking spaces to add, the commission shall require with each new construction of a commercial building or multi-unit residential building with 30 or more parking spaces for cars or light-duty trucks to include the electric vehicle charging infrastructure capable of supporting level 2 electric vehicle charging stations or direct current fast charging stations and at least a minimum of 10% of the required parking spaces.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for reading that, Victor. Per new state laws, the directive to municipalities is to provide for EV charging stations. And so in compliance with new state laws, that's why this is put together. We have a lot of requests, and I know the commission has pointed out that we've have some EV charging stations throughout the town, and we're getting more requests all the time. So rather than come in with modified plans, let's have some regulations in place in compliance with new state laws. So that's what we're trying to do.
All right, anyone in the public who'd like to address to the commission on this public hearing item? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll open up conversation among the commissioners. Commissioners ready?
I have, it's pretty straightforward.
We're in a public hearing right now. When we get to the agenda, then we make our specific comments. Is it
Yeah,
just we need
so I
any
was gonna say,
clarification?
It's
No,
pretty
he's-
straightforward.
yeah.
I have no comment.
Oh, okay,
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine, yes.
I'll say the same thing in my,
I'd like to jump.
We do that all the
I'll say
time.
the same thing later too, Alan. so-
Yeah.
Say it
Do
to,
it again.
say it to me, too.
Yes. Commissioner,
Good for now.
right.
No comment.
In here, no comment for now.
No comment? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Comment at this time.
All right. Yep, no comments either.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
We need more hearings like this.
There will be
Item
others
2.
coming in the future.
Getting into to the public comment portion of the agenda. Anyone in the public who'd like to address the commission on items not on the agenda? Anyone who'd like to address commission on any items not on the agenda? Seeing none, moving to item 4.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5A.
Modification to site plan, United Way of Connecticut proposing to install a natural gas generator on 20.2 feet by 9.5 foot pad with sound barrier enclosure to the immediate east of the building located at 55 Capitol Boulevard in an OP Office Park zoning district ID 13-143.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Dixon. I'm a registered landscape architect in the state of Connecticut. Work for SLR International Corporation. Our offices are at 99 Realty Drive in Cheshire. I'm here tonight on behalf of the United Way, 55 Capitol Avenue. This is the survey drawing here. The building is here. We're talking about a generator that's going to be located just to the northeast of the building here, adjacent to the loading dock. This is a 9 by 20 concrete pad, a natural gas-fed generator. It is a level 2 sound attenuated, weatherproof enclosure. The generator is going to be keyed into the hillside. And what I mean by that is the grade here rises up.
If you can take that mic, please, so we can. So the mic is there,
There's one on the chair.
on the chair here.
Oh.
Yep.
What I mean by that is
I
that the-
think it's not on. Yep.
How about now? Better? Okay. So what I mean by that is being that it's keyed into the grade. The grade rises here. So what we're doing is we're going to cut a notch basically into that hillside a little bit, get it rest, find a nice home for that generator. There'll be about a 4.5 foot reveal on the back side. The grade's going to rise about 4.5 feet in here. There's going to be a row, 2 rows of evergreens in here. The green giant arborvitae will be proposed in here. And then in front of it, a row of Hicks yews. So in terms of from West Street, we're about 147 feet from West Street. People in that location will not be able to see this generator, even though it is 10 feet high. From the minute it is installed, it will already be 4.5 feet lower than the existing grade here. And we're putting 7 to 8 foot tall arborvitae in this location. Those are fast-growing evergreen trees. They do about 1 to 2 foot a year, and they will go anywhere from 30 to 40 and even higher over time, reaching a width of about 15 feet, as much as 20 feet. And that is the presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I would like to make a comment if I could.
Okay.
I know the commission is considering major modification regulations, and I do want to just state on the record that if this came before me and you were not considering that, this would be approved as a minor change for the reasons that he just so stated. If you look on the last sheet, you look at the size of the property, you look at the size of the building, square footage of the building, and you can see where the generator is going to be going based upon the first page, the sketch. This is a minimal impact to the site itself, and it only furthers the safety of the building and the residents, the people, the tenants inside. So I personally would consider this a minor change. However, because the commission is going through that regulation, I chose to bring them back in before you this evening.
Thank you, Kim. I think, yeah, that's helpful to get the perspective of while we are looking at the commissioners.
Do you have to bring new upsize the natural gas to the property?
Not to my knowledge, no. I am not the civil engineer of record. Rock Emmett is from our office. I'm here tonight in his stead. He's unable to be here. If there was a new generator or an increased size in the line, I would have known about it. He would have conveyed that to me, so no.
Okay. I don't have anything.
Commissioner?
No comment. No questions.
No? Commissioner Hudson?
Questions? All set?
No questions.
I'm all set.
Nothing.
Commissioner Brescia?
Oh, just a quick question. This has already been approved by the fire marshal? Is that true? Like, I don't know, does he get to look at it, or is that already set? Just curious.
There's nothing in the file about
Okay,
that.
I just wanted to know. Thanks.
Yep. I don't have,
Would that be part of the building permit, once they pull the building permit?
With respect to this, yes.
Yeah, just for clarification
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that comes first or
Yep,
second.
makes sense.
seeing no comments, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the site plan modification to the United Way of Connecticut, proposing to install a natural gas generator at 55 Capitol Boulevard.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Item B,
Modification to a site plan, Belfonte Companies LLC, proposing to modify the design and materials for the parklet in the northwest corner of the Kelson Road development and modify the meditative garden towards the rear of the site into a community garden for property located generally at 2418 Main Street in the Town Center zoning district ID 10-184.
Again, for the record, David Dixon, Principal Landscape Architect, SLR, in 99 Realty Drive in Cheshire. I've got several handouts I'd like to provide to you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get to the presentation, Kim, do you want to just give your,
No, similar to what I
Yeah.
did last time. This, while it may appear to be minor, because of the nature of the project, I did feel that this item should be coming before the commission. Reason being, there was a lot of discussion concerning the Pocket Park on the north side. It also is part of our town center district, and I know the commission had a lot of discussion on this when the project came in for approval. I know that in the rear of the property, the meditative garden and the relocation, the swapping of the buildings, that was a concern of the neighbors over at Cedar Hollow. So that was done. So in light of the public interest on those two items and the commission's interest, particularly on the Main Street Park, that's why I asked them to come back. And I don't see this as a minor change. That's why they're here this evening.
thank you, yeah, so I kind of agreed to that type of thinking. I don't know if anyone else has any comments. Because I think these are good examples as we move forward
Well,
with
let's-
major, minor.
Let's get what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna, hold on.
No,
I want to make sure
I don't know
we
if
are
it's ma-
fine with
Yeah.
major, minor concept,
Right.
okay? Go ahead.
So I'm sure you're all familiar with Kelson Row. Been before you many, many times. Most recently, I would say it was probably 4, 5, 6 months ago, we came back before you to discuss a change to the pool house and the pool deck itself. You found that agreeable, as we hoped that you would. And what you're going to hear tonight, we're pretty confident you're going to like as well. So initially, north is to the left here, your left. This pocket park in here is a park that really is going to become, it's a semi-public park. Yes, it's going to be used by the tenants, but it's also available for the town. And that's always been the long-term purpose of this, was to create an area for the town and for residents of the town. Unlike the area back in here near Building 7, This was to be a meditative garden, and what I would like to tell you, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, and that is when in the early stages of a project like this, we know that we're going to put something somewhere. We know who we want the item or the feature to serve, and it doesn't sometimes get fully fleshed out until we're in final design. So early on during design development, upon completion of DD, we come before you for seeking your authorization for permits. At that time, the meditative garden, this was a labyrinth. Probably many of you are familiar with what that is. And this was just the pocket park, a circular area for pavers, a curved gazebo, some trees, and along with some benches and some tables. Since that time, we thought that these areas could serve better uses and better purposes, not only for the residents, but also for the town. This is the proposed version of what's happening, what we're proposing here at this Northwest Pocket Park. It's become now much of a more useful, it's a multi-use area. You're going to be able to, it's a large area. I'm going to blow it up. Let's just go right to the enlargement. I know the images here, the green for the trees is kind of hiding a lot of what's happening underneath. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think there's 10 trees, all paved in here, colorized imprinted concrete, benches, bike racks, tables, game tables, and then, of course, the staircase that will bring you down to the lower level on the back side of the park. There's a lot of screening in here and additional plantings. And so the purpose of this area now becomes a multi-purpose area. In the handouts that I have given you, you see examples of, and we're proposing Zelkova trees in here. Zelkova, while not native to the United States, was for a long time considered the replacement for the elm tree. It's resistant to Dutch elm disease. It's got the same form, the same habit, that upright base-like shape. And you can see the beautiful colors that you're going to get through the season. But the main point in here is that this is going to be completely electrified in here. What I mean by that is GFI outlets everywhere. There's going to be lights on the trees, uplights on the trees. It's all flat, it's all level, it's all accessible. And this can serve as arts in the park, craft show, farmer's market, dancing, a jazz quartet on the afternoon, Sunday afternoon. So this becomes a multifunctional space. Tables can be brought out, things can be brought up, erected, and then taken down and moved away. So it will serve so much more as this feature than it would have with this. This was a nice little parklet. You probably get 15 people in there. Beyond 15, 20 people, you'd feel crowded. I would expect you to get 100 people in here easily. Then when we go over to the meditative garden, this is what that looked like before. The labyrinth is a feature that is typically something that you do alone. You don't come in here as a group. And if you do, with 2 or 3, you let the first person go, and it's a quiet, meditative walk through the labyrinth. You wait a minute or two, the next person goes in. There's no talking. You're contemplating, you're praying, you're thinking. Clears your head. That was the intent, and it was, as I said, a space holder. As we moved forward into final design, we started thinking about what's really missing from this development. And one of the things that's very, very popular these days is the community garden. These would be raised garden beds. There's photographs and images in there. There's a shed here. There would be water and areas here where you can store your tools. The pergola is returned as it was shown in the original. We bring it back in here, and there is a low ornamental fence that 42 inches high that brackets the edge of the space. An awful lot of landscaping in here. We don't want a lot of trees because we need sun. And so that's the difference between this and this. If you look at the amount of pavement that we had in here, we had about 1,000 square feet. This is 4,000 square feet. It's more expensive, but Mr. Belfonte thought that it was worth it to advance the project and make it more valuable, not only to the residents, but also to the town. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer anything that I can.
Commissioner Israeli?
On the plantings, the new proposal for the community garden, is there any lighting in that area, or is it all, like, at night? Is there any additional lighting going to be,
Not an excess amount of lighting, no.
so it's
Nope.
just still from the building, and whatever was on
It's
the building?
intended for use during the day.
Right. And those are just regular concrete walking paths?
Yes.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Hussey?
I think I have one question on each. So on the proposed entry plaza, what was approved, you did have benches, you had seating, and I know in your initial presentation, you're trying to make it inviting for not only the residents there, but anyone walking down. Can you kind of give us an idea how that proposal is more inviting for people walking if there's no seating or anything? Or is there seating? I can't-
There's bench seating. There are high top tables and game tables that are shown. It's difficult to pick them up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are currently shown on here. There are permanent benches in the edges, along the edges, but we wanted to leave the majority of the area open underneath so that we could bring in and move things, and we don't have something that's permanent that gets in the way of setting up for a community fair, an arts or crafts fair, or anything like that. And the bike racks are proposed over here.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is, I think you had mentioned you're going from 1,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet of, would you say, impervious coverage?
Yes.
Any issues with drainage?
No, sir.
And in conjunction with that, going to the labyrinth versus planting beds, that corner, obviously, as everyone knows, is a critical point for runoff going to Cedar Hollow. So can you kind of give us a synopsis, pervious coverage on each, or is it going to improve what
Yeah.
runoff could be or make it worse?
Previously, this was all concrete and this was all concrete. Now, the only concrete is in here. The rest of this is stone dust.
So it'll actually be an improvement, would you say?
It should be an improvement, yes, sir.
Okay. All set, thank you.
Commissioner?
Yeah, just to follow up to what Sean was saying. So you said there's not going to be any issues with drainage, even though there's an increase in impervious cover on the entry plaza area. Do you have
That's
any
correct.
supporting calculations to show that?
Not specifically for that. However, during the final design phases, anytime that we made any type of change like that, it was always went back into the calcs, and the engineers would make sure that if we had a need for an increase, then we would size up the pipes accordingly. So I don't have any calculations with me tonight, but if you want to, I could certainly get them.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, because I know drainage was an issue, off-site drainage was an issue in the original approval. So
Okay.
I know it's not a huge area, but it is an increase.
Sure.
Good.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just to review my memory, the park in the back, the meditative garden, that's open only to residents of the property.
That's correct.
Now, the one in the front, or the northwest,
Northwest.
northwest, northeast, oh, northwest.
Northwest.
Corner of the property, northeast of the road. Is that open to the public?
Yes, it is.
Will there be any restrictions or?
No.
Control, okay. The other question is, On the new version, revised version, that looks like, now, is that going to be paved? Always?
In here?
Yeah.
Yes,
So since you're showing it as green, that's tree cover?
that's tree cover.
Okay. Would be better to see the, actual thing. So, and it was, on the large photograph, plan, can you show us, since you went from 1,000 to 4,000 square feet, could you show us how big that is on the overall?
Sure.
Because those are both, they're not both to the same scale.
The calculation was what I was looking at, not so much this, everything, okay? If you look at the space, the overall size of the space is exactly the same as it was before, as it is now. The difference was, what I was saying here, is when I calculated this out this evening, we've got about 1,000 square feet of usable paved area. That doesn't mean that the park only has 1,000 square feet of usable area. Obviously, the balance of the park was to be grass, lawn, and the tables around it. So the approximate 4,000 feet that I'm talking about here is the same as it is here.
Okay, so it's the same size.
Yes,
But what you're doing is you're eliminating 3,000 square feet of grass.
correct.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah, I just recall in the previous meetings that this was a perk of approving the thing to make sure that this was going to be available for the public to use. And the only concern I see here is that under the old plan, it seemed to be more welcoming as to having people feel like they would have the right to walk onto the property. It had 2 benches out near the street, and the connectivity to the interior through a direct walking path, whereas the nearest bench is inset behind the vegetative cover. You don't really see it. It seems like the general public might feel a little intimidated to start walking into this area because, the picnic tables are offset in the back and so on. So in the concept of, the village district and creating that connectivity with the public through the sidewalks, what's the feature compared to the old plan makes this more welcoming, and someone wants to walk down the sidewalk and take a rest? Before, there were 2 benches right next to the sidewalk. Now I see only 1 bench, and it's seems like it's hidden under the trees.
So there are 3 benches here, 1, 2, and 3. These were certainly an area where you might feel that you could easily stop, sit down. There's really not a lot of difference in terms of the overall width of that gateway. I'll refer to it as a gateway, but the entrance.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from the scale because they were shrunk.
The opening to the street, the amount of area that's paved, that walks, introduces you right to the street is 25 feet on the new. And the same on this plan, 25 feet.
I guess that the only thing I might suggest is if we could locate a couple benches up near the first tree canopy, the one that's next to the street, put a bench.
Absolutely.
2 over
Yeah,
there.
we can do that.
So that, somebody just wants to sit down to take a break because
Sure.
they don't want to, they're on the way to the new coffee shop that's farther up the road from the street.
Sure,
but They got
there's-
a bad knee and they want to take a rest.
Right, there's we have plenty of room right here and right here, adjacent to, yeah.
Just to put some benches there, just so the public would see that and then feel inclined to maybe take a
Absolutely.
rest. The only other comment I have is, and it's more of a question of curiosity, is you got quite a few units in here, and I like the idea of the community garden, but there's only like 10 raised garden beds. How do you allocate that real estate?
First of all, it's going to be probably a lottery. They're probably going to, I'm guessing, because there aren't 100 beds. There also aren't going to be 100 people that want to use it, but there will be some that will. It's become a very, the farm-to-table concept has become a big deal in the United States right now. But that doesn't mean the way that we show it here does not have to be made exactly like, we could probably squeeze more in here when it's all said and done.
That was just a curiosity question. I don't have any other comments.
Mr. Gresham?
First off, I just think it's kind of hard to visualize your new concept in the first picture because of everything that's green. It's all green, so it's hard to visualize what I see. Do you intend to take away the granite edges and all the patio types of stuff? Is that going to all go with your proposal?
No, there's going to be granite edging all around the,
Can you please in the back,
there's a granite cobble edge along all of the edges in here, both sides.
Okay, because the half circle in the first picture it does seem more inviting to me, as Ron had said. Seems more inviting to someone walking off the sidewalk to walk there. You're going to have the same kind of thing with the second picture?
Well, the opening is 25 feet
25
here
feet.
and is 25 feet over here.
You just can't
It's
see it.
unfortunate that when someone rendered this, that they took a little bit too much of a liberty to put too much green on top of these trees. But there is a large lawn area in here, and there's a lot of formalized landscaping in here as well. So, yeah, it is hard to read. I acknowledge that, but
Is it completely accessible for people with needs?
completely,
Completely? Okay.
yes.
How many, you said it was multi-purpose, so the gazebo is going to be gone from that?
There was no gazebo. There was a pergola.
A pergola?
There was a pergola here, just an overhead structure.
Is that going to go?
That goes. What we're achieving here, here was a modest sense of an overhead canopy. When the Zelkovas are planted in here, you're going to get that sense, kind of creating the ceiling, so to speak, of the outdoor room. So you'll have that sense of enclosure, not only on the sides, but primarily around the top of it. The Zelkova tree is
excuse me,
like an
if you
umbrella.
can have,
Yeah, the Zelkova is like an umbrella. Very straight trunk, reaches a point, and then it V's off. And you get the top is a nice rounded top. So the sense that you're going to have in here is a wonderful sense of dappled sunlight coming through, but you're going to have that feeling over time. Not immediately. Those trees are going to go in at 3.5 inch caliper. It's going to take 5-10 years before they start filling out. But in time, I think we kind of felt that replaces any sense of the small pergola feature over here.
Could I just make a suggestion, which might it cleared up my question, my follow-up question, but if you go to the proposed overhead plan, it shows the entire
See it?
park without all the green. So it's a lot clearer for everybody to see. See, that's the park without.
That's correct.
So that makes it a lot clearer for everybody.
you're right.
To understand. And that totally answers any of my
Yeah,
follow-up
okay.
questions. So just that will do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Zurelli, your follow-up?
The only follow-up I had was, you mentioned how the community can use it, and we talked about inviting and how this property is still owned by Belfonte, right? They maintain
I
it.
don't, yes, they will, but I believe the I don't want to overspeak on that issue. I really am not sure who, I think they own it, but it is considered, they're basically giving it to the town. It's there for town use. And my guess would be that Parks and Rec or who's ever.
That's where I was trying to get at, that
regulating or creating the schedule for outdoor activities through the good months, through the
Yeah.
summer months, is going to have full use And this, my guess is that this area is going to be used every weekend.
Yeah, I was getting at, because you mentioned, fairs and tents and,
Yes.
things and that. And then we're like, okay, how do people actually use that portion of it? Yes, the inviting part and the walking in, that's totally understandable. But then, what if you wanted that string quartet or the arts fair or whatever it is? What is the next step for a resident? And hopefully there's going to be some education from either Parks and Rec or Mr. Belfonte on how the public can actually use the space. That's my only.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
So, again, I'm going to echo what Commissioner, Ron and others were saying. I think the intent was to make this piece as attractive for general public. What we are trying to do is try to create like a downtown type of feeling. I mean, we have highways passing by, but that's the whole purpose of why we wanted this feature right on along the sidewalk and all that, so that it's inviting. People take break, they sit there, they buy lunch or something, they can go there, and because of the setting, people feel like, okay, once I'm sitting here, there's a walkway, I walk in and go in the back, right? So I think we want to make sure that that feeling is still there, that yes, you can go in. And I think what you were saying is that there is green space in the front. Probably that's where maybe you can put a couple of benches and see that makes attractive. And, I think we just want to make sure that this area is not left out.
No.
And not used during, compared to what we have right now.
Right. And I think we take that one step further in terms of inviting at dusk or in the early evening. This is going to be a welcoming place to be. The lighting in here is going to be just perfect, but even more than that, I think there's a couple of photos that show something that's a little dramatic, but this is something that can be done, and that is to electrify the trees, to bring those lights, especially seasonally. You get toward Thanksgiving and Christmas time, those lights can be strung all the way through those trees, and you get that beautiful sense of almost like a glistening wonderland, winter wonderland in this space. So I think that that's going to be quite nice as well.
So how do we say codify, right? It's not codifying, but how do we know? I see a lot of good renderings here, right? A lot of photos, nice pictures, and they look good, right? So, in terms of what it would be, what kind of lighting, this, that, what kind of accessories and things like that, right? I mean, I don't know whether it would be town who would be doing these things, or it would be, Mr. Belfante's group would be decorating the trees and whatever.
Oh, I would say that would not be the case.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Belfonte and his company would not be undertaking the decorating of the trees. If the town wanted to do that, they could certainly do it. But there will be uplights on all the trees, and the lighting in there is going to be nice, but it's not going to be overkill. It's just going to be a safe place to sit. And as we said, there's also the high tops and the game tables that are located back in here. So hopefully people will feel comfortable to walk through the entire space.
So I don't know what other commissioners think, but I think that there should be some details as to ABCD will be done, right? I mean, we got so much information here.
Right.
And I don't want to just make an assumption, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, right?
Yeah. Those images are concept images. They're trying to capture the essence or the idea of, in particular, what this tree is like, and what many urban plazas around the world, how they use this tree. The trees are planted rather close on center. They're only 30 feet apart from each other, but you want them that close. And in addition to, we talked about the electrification of this space. There's going to be electrical outlets, GFI outlets everywhere in this space, so that it can function and provide sound if need be, for the tent, for people for lights, if they're going to be doing an evening type of a fair, an arts festival or something like that. Where it's a lot of stuff that can happen here really would probably not necessarily be as inviting over here.
Now, have you also thought about, because you're going from 1,000 square feet of impervious to 4,000, have you thought of there is concrete available that you put, it's like a porous, I mean, it's a concrete, but
Yeah.
it's a, environmentally sustainable where there is no runoff, it just,
The hope was that we could do a colorized imprinted concrete in here. You can't really do the pervious concrete with that material. It just doesn't work. But certainly the drainage and additional area drains have been located throughout the area to handle the water. My guess would be, and I know relative to your concern about the additional impervious, is that a modest amount of increase of impervious here would do nothing to the overall calculation of what these storm pipes have been designed to handle.
Where does that drain to? Does that drain back to the street, or does that drain towards?
No, that
east?
drains back into the property.
Back into the.
There's underground detention and series of water quality features that have been designed into the overall project.
Property goes down.
any other questions, comments?
I just said a few more things.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify, so the 25 feet in the front that hits the sidewalk, you're saying that's the same in the second picture that you proposed, 25 feet that hits the sidewalk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any decrease in the amount of benches?
1, 2, 3, 4. There were 2 benches in here. There's 4 proposed to be permanent. 4 proposed to be permanent here. And there were 4 game tables here, and we've got 5 over in this plan.
How about tables, like picnic tables?
The same. That can be used as both. Picnic tables with an umbrella or as a game table.
So they're the same? There's no change in the amount of number, just
No.
one? Okay. All right. And how many bike racks are there? Any changes in that?
We didn't have any bike racks in this one.
Oh, I thought there was.
We have 4 bike racks here. Each rack can handle 2 bikes.
Yeah, there's a bike rack in the original. See that gray square?
I'm sorry.
That's it.
That gray square?
Oh, yeah, I suppose, yeah. It is. Excuse me, I'm incorrect. There are two bike racks there.
And in terms of the meditation garden, it looks nice, the meditation garden, the labyrinth, the quietness of how that's supposed to look in terms of concept delivery. The proposed community garden, I'm not sure, it just doesn't, it looks blah to me. It just does not look as nice as the labyrinth. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. And anytime you just take away some of the grass, like you're doing in the parklet, and you're making it more concrete, like it looks urbanish or suburbanish. We want to be a suburb. That's it.
Any other comments?
Just one quick question. I know that you're going to have the pipes and the water detention sized properly for this development, but are there any issues left with the size of the downstream piping?
Yeah.
The pipe coming onto the property was a problem, but are there any problems with the downstream piping, with the size and their ability to handle?
None that I'm aware of. No. The civil engineers on this project had to do a lot of due diligence. There was a fairly sizable pipe coming into this property, and all that water has been designed to handle that and everything else that's going to be coming into that system.
Any other questions?
No more. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to approve the modification to the site plan for Kelson Row for the meditation garden and, I'm sorry, for the community garden and the front
Entry plaza.
Entry
Parklet,
plaza.
Parklet, yeah.
Yeah, parklet. With the condition that there's some type of list or memorialization of what the changes were, a comparison, like you're getting two benches, you're getting 3 bike racks, because of, without a detailed plan about pointing things out. If we can just have something to staff that says, there's a memorialization, you're getting 10 trees now versus 4 trees, you're getting, this is type of thing, so that way you can have an itemized list.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I just want to follow up. It's not a amendment of motion, but just follow up. You heard what everybody's saying.
I did.
Because as I said, we have a lot of information here. It's FYI type of information. But I think memorializing, there'll be GIFs, there'll be this, there'll be that, who's going to do what type of stuff. So, we know exactly what the town is getting.
We'll put a memo together that summarizes all that.
Right, so, and maybe staff can distribute that at, at the next meeting, so it's in the record.
Will do.
All in favor of, yeah,
You asked if there were any. We did mention the benches, though. Do we need any additional clarification about getting some benches up near the street?
I think we should add to.
Yeah, I think-
As we discussed and as you
Yes.
suggest, I think it's a good idea.
If you want to amend to it, or do we just make sure that it's in the memorialization of what we're getting?
Yeah, I think we could do it in memorialization, because there's 4 benches, right? Which is
Correct.
probably a couple more than before. It's just a
Do
location.
you feel more comfortable adding it as a condition, or do you want to just
Yeah,
make
maybe,
it?
maybe we should add it as a condition. So, I offer, what do I?
like,
offer
and a
friendly
good
amendment
rendering,
to-
I think.
As a condition,
Yeah.
add 2 benches
As mentioned in the public meeting.
The street.
And I think
in
you,
the street.
probably you can get the rendering without the canopy of the trees and show
Will
what it
do.
is. And
That'll
having in the
be
front.
page 2 of the memo.
Right, so we can see in the beginning, there'll be benches and this and that. And all.
So, Alan, you have to accept the friendly.
I'll accept that.
I accept it also.
Any other comments? If not, motion is on the table. All in favor of motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Yep.
night.
Agenda item C, site plan, ELF LLC proposing a 26-unit multifamily development on the site of an existing 10-unit multifamily development for property located at 2094 Celestine Highway off Bel Air Circle, a private road, and an R20 residential zoning district ID 05-024.
All right.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff, members from the public present. I am Chuck Sheehan, representing the applicant. I'm a design professional with Guard Consulting and a professional land surveyor. I'm here this evening with a representative of the owners, Frank Chung. Frank is a highly experienced developer and a PhD engineer himself. He's developed many successful projects here in the town of Rocky Hill, the surrounding region, and in adjacent states as well. I can assure you, if approved, he will do the same here. Site location is situated on the east side of the Celestine Highway, just north of number 2096, just north of Bel Air Circle, which is part of the parcel that we'll be talking about here this evening. The owners, although they are not seeking approval under 830G, have committed that they will dedicate 10% of the dwelling units in this complex to affordable units. Let's see if I can get the IT straight here. Okay. Move to a description of the existing site. The site is comprised of 2.84 acres, mildly sloped land. I'll try to move through this quickly, but there is a lot of information on the site that I think is generic or is germane to the decision, and I'll move quickly through this. Molly sloping land situated on the east side of the Silas Dean. As I've said before, it's in an R20 zone. You had a public hearing and looked at the preliminary site plan just a short while ago and changed the zone from a commercial district to the R20 district. Site is connected to the Silas Dean via Bel Air Circle. Bel Air Circle is a private drive. It's owned and controlled by Dr. Chung, and it's a part of the 2.84 acres. Site is bounded on the west by medical offices and a restaurant, single-family residences to the north and east on Old Colony and Old Main Street, and commercial offices and other vacant land on the south that's owned by the applicant. The site is currently occupied by an existing 10-apartment complex and related parking and utilities that service it. All access to the site currently is via Bel Air Circle. The site is served by MDC Water and MDC Sewer. I know there's been some questions raised about the capacity. This is the upper reaches of the MDC Sewer, and we front on an MDC trunk water line and a Silas Dean Highway, and all facilities have extra capacity. But I'll talk more about where we're tying into the sewer because it addresses a concern that has been raised by an abutter. All communications and electric power services are situated in Bel Air Circle. They're all adequate to extend onto the site. Property was carefully inspected by a registered soil scientist who found no wetlands on the site, no upland review areas. Despite that, the owners went to the Wetlands Commission. Wetlands Commission have reviewed these plans, and they approved the plans. Moving on to the next site, or next plan rather. Developers plan to raise the current apartment building and foundation, and they'll demolish all the existing paved surfaces. There's a large gravel lot and a large bituminous concrete lot out there now. All of the runoff flows unabated into an adjacent stream. The new facilities will have a substantial stormwater management system, and they actually reduce the flow off-site. The post-development flow is actually less than the pre-development flow, and I'll talk about the drainage calculations as I move on in the presentation. Subsurface utility connections that serve the existing site and all overhead utilities serving the existing structure will be demolished. Any demolition materials, any unsuitable material on site will be properly disposed of. The planned development will include 26 new townhouse apartments. And they'll be housed in 3 separate structures, 2 8-unit apartment buildings and 1 10-unit apartment building. There'll also be covered parking facilities for 20 vehicles and 47 surface parking spaces, and there'll be 6 handicap spaces appropriately located close to the buildings to properly fulfill the need of accessibility. New sidewalks are planned throughout the development, and a new sidewalk connecting the development to the existing sidewalks on Silas Dean is planned as well. Talk a little bit more about that when I talk about Bel Air Circle. Clearing of existing trees that surround the site that currently provide a buffer to the residential areas to the north and east will be limited, and the large stand of trees that currently exist there will largely remain after the project is completed. I do have a color rendering, and the color rendering, I think, depicts most accurately what stays and what goes. There's also an abundant planting schedule that we'll talk about that will supplement what's taken off the site. Bel Air Circle will be widened as a result of this project and totally reconstructed. As I mentioned, a new 4-foot sidewalk connecting the great project that the town did on the Silas Dean to this site, so that this will be, a very accessible and a site that if you're walking to the bus service on Silas Dean on this site, you'll be able to do it entirely on an accessible walkway. Buildings will be served by MDC Water and Sewer. I know there's been a question by the fire marshal that's raised in his comments And of course, we're very sensitive to any sort of issue that might be considered a safety issue, and that one is. We've talked to the MDC about the sizing of the existing main and the existing fire hydrant in Bel Air Circle. The MDC feels it's adequate, but in order to ensure that it's adequate, pressure and volume tests will be conducted on that water main. And since we want to fully address the fire marshal's concerns, we'll work with the fire marshal, and if the water main has to be upsized, it will. But it'll be based on a scientific pressure test, flow test it's called, of the existing 6-inch water main in Bel Air Circle. Other utilities are all available, as I mentioned previously, in Bel Air Circle. Stormwater management plan is to collect all surface runoff and any runoff that flows onto the site from adjacent properties in a standard catch basin conduit system. I'll show you a plan of the drainage in a few here that depicts where the catch basins are located. We're going to detain the post-development increase, and the post-development increase isn't as large as it would normally be because the current site is almost as developed as what we, in terms of coverage, as what we're proposing. Nevertheless, we have substantially decreased, in most cases, cut in half, the post-development flow to what exists there now. I have a table that I can display from the drainage calculations that shows that and is a good synopsis, and if anybody wants to see it, I'm happy to post it here afterwards to more fully explain the extent to which we're attenuating off-site flows. The building layout conforms in all respects to the R20 zone requirement, and in most cases it exceeds the standoff distances from the property line. In particular, where there are residences that abut, we've observed setbacks that are almost twice the minimum that the town regulations require. Site layout, that is the driveways, the parking lots, the sidewalks, they conform completely to all the dimensional requirements specified in the zoning regulations, parking layout requirements, parking lot geometry for the roadways, and the best practices for a development of this type. This next slide depicts site grading and drainage and proposed contour elevations. There are no diversions of any kind. Diversion is a nasty word with deep, and it's simply not permitted. So all of the current watersheds are observed. There are a couple here. And everything that flows on-site is handled properly, picked up in a structure of some type, and either a culvert end or a catch basin, and run through the detention system so that the discharge off-site is properly attenuated. It will actually have an impact on downstream structures where a question was asked earlier about another plan, are there problems downstream? The flood study for the town took a very detailed look at off-site systems, and they all have the capacity to pass a 100-year storm. We looked at everything from a 2-year storm all the way up through 5, 10, 25, 50, and a 100-year storm. And in all cases, like I said before, our system attenuates the discharge, so it's almost half of what goes off-site now. Sedimentation and erosion control plan provides both temporary and permanent measures, hay bale check dams, wooden check dams, sediment and control fencing, and a variety of other inserts into catch basins that are designed to, in a carefully sequenced plan, which is designed to protect adjacent property owners and any adjacent watercourses from any sediment yield that might come off of the raw slopes during construction. Those systems will be installed prior to the start of construction and will remain on site until construction is complete. The proposed development plan includes an abundant array of site plantings. In addition to this plan, which isn't colored, I do have a colored site plan, and I'll show it at the end of the presentation. And the planting schedule, as you can see from the lower left of this, site landscaping plan, has a vast array of foundation plantings, street trees, and perimeter plantings that will supplement, and they're all mature trees on the perimeter, so that the buffer, to the greatest extent possible, screens the existing property owners, particularly to the north and to the east. All areas affected that are not affected by site planting of either foundation plantings, perimeter trees, street trees, or the buffer on the north and east side will be made friable with 3 inches of topsoil and fertilized, seeded, and mulched, and carefully nurtured till it's a dense grass surface. I don't know why I'm off on my slide here, but I apologize for that. Okay, we're on to site lighting. Site lighting is designed to be contained within the existing site perimeter while it provides safe lighting levels within sidewalks and paved areas of the site. All site lighting systems are dark sky compliant, which I know is important to you, and the photometric plan clearly demonstrates that site lighting provides safe levels on all areas that will be navigated on site while not encroaching beyond the property lines. These next few sheets that I'll just fly through here in the interest of time, I'm happy to come back to any of them, provide a lot of detailed dimensions and details associated with different elements of construction on the site, but and they're included in every project of this type, everything from paving to curbs to plantings. And I'm just going to go through these quickly. We'll come back to them if anybody has any questions. Moving on to the architecture. Our architect is Don Hammerberg Associates from Farmington. And subsequent to the initial zoning meeting, the materials and the appearance of this building has been changed substantially. Gabling is different, and the front and rear elevation, which is shown for an 8-unit complex. Remember I said there were 2 8-unit complexes and 1 10. I'll quickly go through another 8, which is exactly like this one, and a 10-unit complex, which again is the same facade. The first and second floor plan of each unit is also included here. The floor plan for each unit maintains essential kitchen and family room elements on the first floor with 2 bedrooms and bath facilities on the second floor. Units are comprised of about 1,200 square feet on both floors. Facade design incorporates white vinyl clapboard siding on each unit with a fieldstone knee wall that rings the entire building. That's the sides, the front, and the rear elevation of the building. And that's depicted on this drawing. We have a colored rendering which shows this a little bit better, which I'll get into. Units will employ current units are gas-fired boilers and gas stoves, gas hot water heaters. Recognizing that we're trying to move to beneficial electrification everywhere, it's a goal of the state DEP and a goal that we want to help contribute to. Units will employ a sustainable approach to appliances and mechanical equipment. Each dwelling unit will be fully climate controlled with all-electric ductless heating and cooling units, and all units will feature energy-saving appliances and water-saving plumbing fixtures. I'll go through quickly the 8-unit, which are exactly like the one that I've just described here, and the 10-unit, which is exactly the same, except it's a little bit longer. I'm sorry, okay, moving on now. I mentioned earlier that we have a covered parking facility. Covered parking facility will provide protected parking for 20 vehicles. Exterior design of the hipped roof matches the architectural theme of the apartment building facades, which again is low-rise and designed to be compatible with the adjacent residences. This next picture, Frank, if you don't mind, can you just maybe uncover the architectural view for anybody that might want to, I see that I've lost the audience here. The partial elevation view of a facade is colored here, and it shows the stone knee wall, the white clapboard siding, the black frame windows, black frame doors, and gray architectural shingle roof. This is a contemporary theme. It's employed in a number of areas throughout Connecticut and New England. And the gables help to provide a transition from the commercial development on the west side of this site to the residential, which is single-family residential, which is located on the north and east. I mentioned we would show you a colored rendering, and I've got a couple of other boards that I'll make reference to in just a minute, and I'm almost done. Apologize for the long presentation, but I'm trying to get everything that I think you would want to hear into the record. So we have the colored rendering here, and the buildings are shown in gray. The parking lot, a little darker shade of gray. The light green is either existing lawn or proposed lawn, and the even darker green than that is either existing planted street trees or planted buffers. So, let me grab this mic over here. Although I have an obnoxiously loud voice, and I don't think anybody's going to have any problem hearing me. I'll mute the mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
That's good? Okay, thank you. All right, so parking areas are obvious. Street trees are the larger round rings. These encircled areas here are existing stands of vegetation that will remain, and it's tall trees, it's thick trees. This ring around the site is a combination of deciduous and conifer plantings with street trees on this side. This is the commercial development over here. Specifically designed to provide a thick buffer, which residents had requested at the zone change hearing. So we were aware of some of the concerns that were articulated at the zone change hearing. The buildings are nowhere near the setback that they could be on this site. It could be as close as 20 feet to the property line. These buildings are set back 40 feet. That's slightly further than the existing building is from the property now. The owners had requested relocating the dumpster enclosure from the west side of the site, which was in this location here, to the, from the east side of the site to the west side of the site, and that fully enclosed dumpster has been moved to this location as far away from the residents as we could possibly get it while it's still keeping it on site. The facades have changed dramatically. The fieldstone front, the gables, the windows, everything is different about the facades. And what were somewhat tract housing looking buildings are now attractive units that we think blend well with the surrounding area. The site coverage is 47%, and the maximum in this zone is 75%. So the owners have exercised restraint in terms of the coverage on the site. And quite frankly, that made our job easier with respect to designing the drainage. Let me just show you one other picture. This is a aerial photo of the site. This is a 10-unit apartment complex. This is the parking lot here. And it's approximately 32% covered now. So we're going from 32 to 47, but we're adding a very large galley system that takes the curse off a lot of the drainage that's going off-site down in this vicinity here. And we know of no downstream structures that are inadequate, and if they were, they'd benefit from this project because the discharge off-site is about 50% of what it is now. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
All right.
If you don't mind, I'm going to drop this down so I can see people when I'm talking to them.
I'd like to see if anyone in the public have any comments on the proposal. Anyone? I see.
If there's anybody there, they all left.
Anyone who would like to address the commission on this proposal? Any comments? Seeing none. Commissioner Zarelli?
A few questions. So in the beginning of your presentation, you said you would commit to 10% affordable, so I just want to make sure that's 10% or 3 units, because it's 22.6, so we're committing to 3 units of affordable.
Slightly above my pay grade, but I'm gonna turn around and we'll definitely get you a straight answer.
All right,
Yeah. So 10% is 2.6.
yeah, so you're going to 3.
Some of the building half.
Frank, that rounds to 3.
I will provide 3 units.
Just making sure. EV chargers, are there any on site, knowing that the next item in our agenda after you is for asking for EV chargers?
There aren't proposed, but we certainly work with the town on that.
Okay, so just be familiar with what we're going to be talking about next and what we talked about in the public meeting, that 10% of
30%, right?
10% of, should be electrified with 30 or more spaces, so just want to throw that out as, because we'll be looking for that. We had some comments on our desktop today about vegetation. You took us through the old Main Street side of the facility, but just looking at the existing conditions versus what we're getting, or what's going in, I see there's a big opening to the north.
To help your question, maybe Kim, do you want to just read this for the record?
Well, there's a few things. I wanted to ask, did you receive the copies from Jason Scott in our engineering department? I didn't know if you received comments from,
I have not seen them, no.
okay, I don't know if then they were supposed to be sent out. So. I don't think that's one, and then while you're, I believe that was requested to be sent out to you, but I will verify that. We did receive comments today, and I did give the applicant a copy when they did, before the meeting started. It's from a gentleman by the name of Don Hutchinson. He did get a copy of tonight's agenda at his request. He resides at 533 Old Main Street, unable to be present at tonight's meeting, but would like my comments to be heard. I'm writing this correspondence in reference to the apartment complex plan off of Bel Air Circle that you were considering tonight. I have a few concerns and would like to voice them at this time. First, I would like to comment that the group that is proposing this project was suggested by your commission to reach out and talk to neighbors of the abutting properties about any concerns that we may have. For everyone's information, I do not think this was done. I've received no communications from them, and the few neighbors that I spoke to did not either. Also, I think that you should consider that some of your suggestions about the project were not addressed. Some suggestions were an inquiry about materials used, sightline views of what we will see at ground level. The only thing I can see on the new set of plans that has changed is that the garbage enclosure has been moved closer to the Solstein Highway instead of facing our backyards. Another main concern is the vegetation and buffer depth, especially on the old Main Street side. The buildings are very close to our property lines, and the landscaping plan does not seem to have much of a buffer between the properties. I would like to see if it can be increased and filled in with more mature growth boundary plans to minimize our view of these large buildings. My next concern would be noise and dust that this project will produce during construction. Is there a plan about these concerns, and there are time and day restrictions as to when the actual construction can occur? My last concern at this time would be sanitary sewer line hookup. All the properties along Old Main Street have our sanitary sewer running through our backyards with a junction that runs out to the Solstein Highway along the property line, then under Bel Air Circle. Seems that these new buildings will be connected to this line. and I would like someone to make sure that the line can handle the added waste that will be generated. I would hate to have future issues with backup that seems to be a problem in some other areas that MDC controls. In closing, I know that there is no real action I can ask you to take on these major change or deny this project, but I continue to disapprove this project based upon its size and closeness to our homes. I know this is not the forum to discuss the major increase in Rocky Hill with new multifamily units, but with my taxes going up every year and these units bringing many new families to our town, it does not seem feasible to be able to afford to be in Rocky Hill for long. With the current quality of the school's public services Rocky Hill has, it is a magnet for many to take advantage of. Hopefully, the tax dollars collected from these properties offset the expense that is incurred by a larger population.
Thank you. So that's it, right? That
Yes,
closes.
I do want to state, I'm reading it, and I kind of want to answer the time and date restrictions about construction. We do have a town ordinance about noise, and it does address construction in there. So that will be afforded to every project that comes in. We make sure they get a copy of that, so.
Thank you.
Just scanning the engineering department's
Yep.
memorandum, I think we can comply with everything. It's minor details, it's some issues about what model numbers we included in the hydraulic analysis versus what model numbers are shown on the plans. We'll make sure that the calculation numbers prevail. Those are what you want. And with respect to the abutting owners' concerns, those were articulated very clearly to us in the zone change meeting. So we went away from that understanding exactly what they were looking for. We've substantially modified the facades at great expense to make them more compatible with the adjacent residences. We have added substantial planting buffer, which is evident from the plans that show the number of plantings, the caliper of plantings, the height of conifers that will be planted. And look, you can always do more. If the commission is not satisfied with it, we'll work with you to ensure that you know, this plan to the maximum extent possible. But we didn't feel a need to go and meet with the owners any further because we had that conversation. We understood their issues, they articulated them very well, and we've dealt with every one of them. I think that deals with both memos,
All right.
engineering and the citizen issue. Any other questions?
Yeah, so to the north, the border, on the existing, if you could just bring up the existing, because we have the, yeah, yep. So you look to the northern part of the property, and there's the big opening, which you guys are, yeah, we don't need that. So to the north there, we see a house with the opening to your,
Correct.
to the property, and you're going to fill that whole area in.
With conifers.
So how close is what they're doing is to your property line? Like, I see a patio or something going on there.
Yeah, it's this.
Are they on your property, or is that on your property, or?
Had the benefit of
Can
actually
you-
being the surveyor on
Can you
this
take
Yeah, we need
the,
to-
yeah,
Excuse me.
thank you.
This, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah,
Okay. This particular property, the iron pins are located approximately here.
okay.
So the plantings will take place in this area here. And there's no development in here. So it would actually be easy if we wanted to increase the depth of the plantings. So I don't see a need to do it. Based on the maturity of the trees and the types of plantings that are going to be done, it will create a visual barrier.
So the photometrics show that there's no light to adjacent properties. I'm assuming these are all down LED fixtures?
Correct.
There's no lighting on the units themselves? for
Just at the
all packs or anything?
entrances, there are small fixtures adjacent to the sidewalks there, but not, they're on the buildings. So
Okay.
nothing that would create visual interference off-site, certainly.
And then my last question, outside of the staff comments, which you already talked about, these are wooden decks, or are they patios off the back?
Patios
So they're all stone or concrete patios?
or
not-
concrete pavers, yeah.
Concrete pavers, they're not
Yes.
wood decks? I saw
Negative.
railings, that's why I saw.
No, they're either concrete pavers or concrete.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you, sir.
Can you elaborate on the existing entrance road? You stated you're going to be
Surely,
reconstructing that?
happy to do it. The existing road is only about 18 feet wide, and if you look at state design standards, a standard lane is 11 feet wide. So we talked to the town engineer about what he would want to see in there, and we arrived at 22 feet. So the road will be widened 22 feet. There'll be a standard snow shelf, and then a 4-foot sidewalk.
What about the entrance onto the Southside Highway? Because you're not really showing any detail. Is that radius?
We have
changing?
another plan. I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but it has expanded radii so that any kind of a design vehicle, be it a fire truck, a moving van, for somebody who's moving in or out of one of these units, all of the radii on the project can be traversed by anything from a single unit truck to a WB-50. WB-50 is a tractor trailer.
Gotcha.
I'm sure you know that, but
Yeah, no, I just didn't see it anywhere. That's why I was questioning it.
And Giuseppe, just so you know, this is a private road existing, it will remain a private road.
Okay. Last question, one of the notes on here says that there's, properties are subject to existing easements, and I can see that there's a MDC easement that runs through this property and then goes through the back, but, is there any other easements on the south side? Because I see some utility poles.
just one other easement, and it's a pole line easement. You'll see on the existing survey, there are several poles, and it's a pole line easement. It isn't defined. It's just
Okay.
where they actually have the poles and the overhead wires and the guy wires, they actually have the right to have them there. So it's one of those horrible generic Eversource easements that you can't really plot on a plan.
Okay, and is that also on the adjacent property? Because the pole shows on the adjacent property.
The sewer is on the adjacent property, which we also own. So the MDC easement, I think, is a 20-foot wide easement, and that's the sewer that Mr. Hutchinson referred to that comes down from the houses. The old Main Street houses are all sewered from the rear lot, horrible design. And it's collected in the rear lot and then flows to the west to a trunk sewer that's in Bel Air. And we're tying in, this also deals with one of his issues. He was concerned that we might interfere with the capacity of the sewer lines that drain those houses on Old Main Street. Those few houses that are draining into an 8-inch sewer are nowhere near what an 8-inch sewer can handle. So that line is not at capacity, but we were aware of this. So we completely avoided tying into that line, and we're tying in downstream into a 24-inch sewer.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, a few questions for you. To kind of piggyback with Commissioner Glico a little bit, I know you had mentioned that it's going to be pedestrian-friendly.
Yes.
So you're going to have a sidewalk going from the proposed project, bless you, out to Silas Dean,
Yes.
possibly for kids, possibly for waiting for buses. Do you have
Correct.
any thoughts on a seating area, bus stop, anything that you were thinking about, given a volume of kids you might
There is a
have?
bus shelter right out front on the Silas Dean. I realize you wouldn't want to send your kids down the driveway to wait for a bus on Silas Dean. So if the commission had a desire for a bus shelter, we could easily accommodate it anywhere within the project.
Yeah, I knew that with reconfiguration, things are going to move, things are going to change, so with the anticipation of heavy pedestrian traffic maybe heading that way, it might not be a bad idea.
I think it's an excellent suggestion, one that we'd be happy to comply with.
All right, thank you. On the east side, I know in the presentation you said that deciduous trees on the east side would not be taken out, is that correct?
No, limited clearing on the east side, but abundant planting going back in. And when I say east side, it's most of the clearing that takes place, actually takes place up in this area here.
Okay.
And most of the existing tree stand remains here. I think sometimes, unless you've had your property surveyed recently, and I'm not putting out an advertisement to survey your property, but unless you've had your property surveyed, most people don't know where the boundary lines are. So they probably, if they did have a survey, they'd realize that most of that natural vegetation is on their side of the line, and we're not going to disturb it.
Yeah, you can tell from that aerial shot that I'm sure is rather recent that there's pretty good vegetation there.
Very good.
Yeah, I just didn't know what was being taken out.
There is limited clearing, mostly in the northeast corner. Most of the vegetation remains. But in addition to that, we are going to supplement the planting, as much for our folks, you know, that's right out their rear window, as for the abutting residents. But we recognize that was a concern, and I think we've engraved the plan to try to come up with something that would be acceptable to all parties.
Okay. Obviously, it's privately owned. Thoughts on snow removal?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I didn't see anything in the plan depicted. Are you carting it out? Do you have an area that's you're kind of dedicating for that?
Most of the snow is carted out and stored in the rear area on a paved bituminous surface. So that's pretty much what we'll continue to do. When you're widening from 18 to 22 feet, it isn't a substantial increase in the amount of snow you have to store. So.
Yeah, it was more the added parking lot. That's what I was more referring to.
Yes, yes.
In terms of where you're going to take that.
That snow, most of it probably will come to the adjacent property to the south also. The owners also own that large parcel to the south, and that's where the snow from Bel Air goes. That's where the snow for the existing project goes that needs to be hauled off-site.
Okay. Last question. Any thoughts on or anticipating doing any photovoltaic, any solar on the roofs? Anything that you thought of or contemplating?
These were not planned as solar units. You know, our energy efficiency is all built into the mechanical equipment, and you know, with high efficiency ductless units, we had not planned to implement solar at this time.
Okay. All set. Thank you.
Commissioner Lecco?
Yeah, with regards to the northeast corner where you're clearing some trees there, it's hard to tell exactly where the existing trees are on your proposed plan. Could you point that out to me?
Sure. You know, I may have a slide that's better. Let me just see if I can bring up that one slide here. Okay. So, the limit of clearing, I'm going to, oh, shoot, he turned that off. I'm sorry.
We can see it. We can see it here. We
We
can
can
see
see,
it.
we can see.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm using the pointer here to go around the limit of clearing. And I'm going to use the pointer now to come down to the limit of trees.
Okay, so it clips the corner.
It clips the corner of the building. And as you can see, a lot of those trees are on the adjacent property. When I was doing the survey out there, I uncovered a lot of monumentation that the owners didn't even know was there. And their property lines are actually further back than they thought they were. You know, usually it's the case that there, you know, with creep of ownership, people go over the property line, you know, and encroach. In this case, they had held back from the property line. So a lot of what they thought we owned, they own. And of course, we're going to observe the property lines to the 100th of a foot.
If you remove that last unit, would you need to clear those trees there?
Probably still, yes.
And what kind of trees are going in that corner? Could you point that out again?
It's, the trees that are going in there are a mix of deciduous and conifers, and my eyes aren't that good that I could read this, but I could get back to you with a specific schedule. It's a mix of deciduous and conifers along the property line to the south of that easterly building.
Well, I see that as the only area where you might be able to make improvements. If you go with larger trees and maybe more conifers in that area,
We certainly can.
I think that would help the neighbors' concerns, just in that corner.
We're happy to work with the town to do that.
On sheet L6, the landscaping plan, they do have, the plantings that are shown on that sheet does have
Okay,
the
yeah.
list of species, but not in that particular corner.
Please, yeah.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner?
Just two simple ones.
You don't mind if I take this down, do you? So I can
Oh, no. No,
see
we
you
have
well,
it.
talking to you.
You want to look at me? The access road, is that only available or access to the apartments?
There's a limited use of it also by the buildings to the south, but most of the access to the other buildings occupied by the owner are through the driveways.
Okay. And these are intended to be rental apartments,
Correct.
right? Okay. And one other question, is there anyone living there now? Or how are you going to handle residents if you're going to tear down the buildings? I mean, you're going to...
Very carefully.
Yeah, well, I'm concerned that...
They will have an opportunity to reside in the new units.
But in the...
We are going to phase it so that a new building will be in place when the other buildings are raised, so.
So they're not going to get a 10-day notice to get out or anything like that?
Negatron.
Okay. I didn't think so, but...
It's a good question, thank you.
I'm a little focused right now on the drainage study. I see on the maps that it says that there's proposed watershed areas, but the watershed areas are linear and almost aligned with property boundaries. Do you mean drainage areas?
Watershed areas are drainage areas, so it's one and the same. It's a synonymous term. And we did have the advantage of 1-foot contour lines here. So we were able to delineate and carefully looked at it in the field as well. We had 1-foot contours, 1-foot elevation contours, and you're much more accurately able to draw the watershed boundaries with perpendicular lines to the contours. So we had the benefit of that added level of detail. We also did field survey where we had doubt.
So those linear lines, they're actual split points where...
Yes, they are.
Where the flow's going in the other direction towards the
Correct.
adjacent properties?
Correct.
Okay.
Or it's bypassing us entirely and headed in a different direction. There is a downstream water course from this site, and some of that water flows there now, and it will continue to flow there. You know, we wouldn't go on private property and perform a diversion, to intercept water, but we take everything that comes on our site now.
So with such a small scale in the split points as far as elevations, are there any concerns or issues that might, whether temporarily or permanently, cause any change in flow patterns during and after construction?
No. We have stockpile. The only thing that would cause a problem is if you were to go willy-nilly and stockpile earth materials to obstruct drainage, but we've delineated where stockpile areas are going, and we've carefully selected them so that they won't do that. No, there will not be any issues during construction that would obstruct natural drainage.
Okay. And then proposed grading is going to be similar in elevation to what it is now?
It is similar in almost every case or slightly flatter. There's a little crest of a hill that we take the top off of, and we were able to flatten the slopes here. This was a very difficult site to grade, very difficult. Don't ask me why, but it was.
Okay. The other question I have relative to drainage, and you haven't seen Jason Scott's report yet, but he does mention the study. And I guess the first question I have is, the subsurface detention basin is going to attenuate the water by allowing infiltration through the bottom of it, correct?
Correct.
So what is
Well, it attenuates in a couple of different ways. It provides storage, but there's also a gravity drain out of it, and there's a restrictive orifice right at the flow line, so the entire structure drains. So it really doesn't make any difference what the infiltration is. The entire structure drains. And the drawdown effect of the downstream storm drainage will keep it dry. But I see he wants test holes, no problem.
Oh, okay, so what you're saying is that even if that, let's just say it's a 1,000-year storm, you've probably had a few
Correct.
lately. If that chamber fills up, you're saying that it will just flow like a pipe?
That's correct.
And
It drains fully. It drains through a gravity drain that's undersized. There's an orifice plate. So it holds water back, it holds the difference back and temporarily stores it, but ultimately allows it all to exit. And the drainage period is very short. So you could get back-to-back storms, and this system would be capable, which we seem to be having lately.
And does that have to do with the design being long and linear? Is that helping the, because I see it's a very narrow, long and linear.
We just happen to have a location there that we could do it this way. And there's inspection ports where you can get into the system. Under best practices, you maintain these systems. And we'll do that. Frank, being an engineer, you'll probably be more meticulous with it than your normal developer. But we just had we had the area, and that was the easiest way to lay it out.
Oh, okay. And then the other question, again, this gets back to Jason Scott's report. I guess the proposal is showing an ADS SC 310.
I don't know how that happened, but you know, as I said earlier, when I saw his report, we'll make sure that the units that are called out in the report are the units that are shown on the plan.
Okay. And then the only other question that I have is that, is there going to be any signage at the entrance road near Celestine Highway?
There's been some recommended stop signs by the town engineer. I think the stop signs will be added. If we have a identifying sign for, we still don't have a name for this complex. Frank's partners have gone back and forth on a name a few times, and they haven't been able to reach a conclusion on it yet. So when they arrive at that, we may have to come back for a sign permit.
Yeah, because it's not in the proposal, so we're not at that point yet, so. And then, is there adequate existing lighting on the main entrance road, or will there be additional lighting added?
There's a couple of street lights. We're going to enhance those.
Okay. That's all I have.
How are you going to enhance those streetlights?
The street lights are going to be enhanced. They're old fixtures. They're not LED fixtures. And we're going to use larger fixtures, and we're going to use the existing poles. There isn't a light on every pole either.
Okay, so you'll add lights to
We will add lights where there is no light.
Okay. I just had a couple questions. Mr. Hutchinson had asked about, are there going to be mature trees because, for a buffer on the old Main Street side? So are you proposing young trees or
No,
more
the
mature
street
trees?
trees are I think they're a 3-inch caliper. And in that species, a 3-inch caliper is about 25 years old.
Okay,
So
they'll
they're
be-
substantial trees.
So they'll be able to buffer so he won't see,
Those are not conifers, those are deciduous trees. So there'll be some break in view, but you know, we're actually going from a more intensive, you know, it's sort of a transition zone. So The landscape architect, Biff Schlesinger from Farmington, felt that the deciduous trees, we can easily change them to conifers if the board would approve, or if the board would prefer.
What would give the best,
Privacy would be conifers. I think appearance-wise, in that location, that, in terms of quality of the landscaping, it would be the deciduous trees that are proposed.
okay. I don't know enough about trees to, I just know buffers, so you guys, trees. Are you going to have any units that are accessible at the wheelchair level for amenities? Just curious.
Accessible units?
Yeah, so we'll be nearby
No.
the handicap, you know.
Handicap units.
Yeah.
Is it two handicap units that there are going to be?
No, each building have a, two access of handicap parking.
Okay, but none of the units are designed as handicapped accessible?
Oh, I see.
I'm just asking because our population is aging, and I'm just wanting to know if you're having any interest in looking at handicapped accessible units for those with special needs that may need a little bit of wider space, lower cabinets.
The step is
Are they
so
able-
different, so.
Okay,
Are they able to be retrofitted, I guess, would be another way to.
yeah.
I think the ground floor to the.
Is one step up from the front door?
Within a foot, 12 inch here.
Okay, so maybe I'm not phrasing this correctly, but a unit's accessible, meaning like,
Very easy to put a.
Chuck, if you can give him a mic, please, because
Yeah,
he should
certainly.
use mic, yeah.
for example, can a wheelchair fit? Can a wheelchair have accessible access to your units?
These
Right now,
units have
the
a second
Yeah.
floor. These are two-floor units.
Yep.
And I don't see anything on the floor plan that would lift a wheelchair. Now, whether a wheelchair lift on the staircase would do it, we can investigate that. I think that's the biggest impediment. The lavatories are all big enough for a turning radius of a wheelchair, and it would be easy to modify any of the fixtures, the cabinets, the sinks, to make them handicapped accessible. So we can look at how we can do that. I don't think the design has progressed to a point where we can actually say that we have planned for that at this
Okay,
point.
because just a nice thing to look into.
It's certainly a reasonable question.
Are stairs, like going to the second floor, just wider so they can fit a stair glide if need be.
Yep.
Not that you have to put them in, but sometimes it's good to think about future if someone would need a stair glide. I don't know, just saying.
I think it's a very good suggestion, and we will look into it.
Okay. I appreciate-
Actually, before we lay out the plan, our fourth floor, very interesting. Right now, my current one bedroom, the fourth floor is 600 square foot. I have one bedroom there. So in case I have a handicapped people apply that, they can very easy to to lay out one bedroom in the downstairs too.
To make it like an efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the site, as Frank had said, is so flat and
It
graded.
looks-
And graded,
It looks
flat as a
flat.
pancake. It's an undulating grade, so the site itself is very accessible. And to people of any age, children who want to ride bicycles or elderly people that have difficulties with mobility, it would be easy to install ramps because you're not dealing with any relief at all there.
No, it looks flat. It looks good.
Thank you
I'm
for
just
the
saying,
question. It's a good one.
Just to kind of keep for the future, because we're all getting old. So you know what? Get those stairways wider to fit those stair glides in. I see that you had one. How many bike racks do you have? I saw one.
There is one.
Do you have one for each unit?
No,
Is there a possibility of putting in one for each unit?
certainly.
I mean, I saw the other day a bike rack that had the built-in air compressor in it so that it filled the tires with air. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know if that's something new.
The bicycle rack, yeah, we did provide in the front of the area, yeah.
Yeah, just, just take a look at it.
We shall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I think we discussed the affordable units, we discussed the EV chargers, 10%.
Affordable?
Now, just for the record, when we say affordable, we're talking as defined by state statute,
By state
correct?
statute,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And
And-
along those affordable units, do you have a plan on how you're going to administer and oversee affordable units, either, renting, once they,
We do have a model plan. We have not filled it out yet, but it virtually mirrors what 830G requires. So they'd be administered in the same way.
yeah, because I think that is important to make sure that 10% is,
I don't see
All
any
the
other way.
time, right.
There's no other way to really administer a program like that other than use that model.
no. So, now, Kim, I don't know, will that be submitted as part of the record? Is that
It would
how-
have to be submitted and filed on the land records also, because, yeah.
For monitoring purposes?
And are we talking deed restriction unit, deed
Yes,
restricted
deed
units?
restricted units, so, again, I don't think you're going to designate 1, 5, and 10 as
I don't think you can
affordable.
do that.
It's,
I
right.
think
It would
you have
be-
to, you have to allow that to float.
Yes.
You can't concentrate them in one unit.
Right.
Right.
And you can't concentrate them in one particular area.
Yeah.
And we're very familiar with 830G.
Yep.
We had no intention of coming to this commission with an 830G project or threatening you, that we were going to do anything like that.
Thank
But-
you.
Any amenities for residents, with high-density developments, right? Now that people work from home, what amenities are being provided for the residents so they can, while they're working, they want to take a, 10-minute walk, they want to decompress, things like that, like.
Well, there is, like we said, there's virtually 30% less coverage on this site, so you've got an abundant area to recreate on the site. You've got sidewalks that will take you out to the commercial district on the Silestine, so you could ride a bike, you could take a walk. In terms of whether there is any active recreation like a playscape or anything like that for children, the project is really small and it would be very expensive for the owners to include something like that, and very expensive for the people that rent to own and maintain extensive amenities. So what we tried to do was to keep the density down, provide a high-quality walking environment, and large open spaces on the site. So the units themselves, will all be wired with fiber optic connections for anybody who works from home. They'll be fully connected to the internet, and the electrical is sympathetic with all of that as well. Beyond that, we hadn't really thought to include anything like any active recreation because of the small number of units.
Yeah, I think, I'm not talking about like playscapes and things
Yeah.
like that, that will be used by just, kids and all that. Things like, benches or things like that where, they can sit there, there's some green area where,
You have any
It
problem
just-
adding benches?
Right now, we not intend to do that, but maybe I can, vacant one room for the whole. Instead of I have 26 unit, maybe a 25 unit, and then one of the unit just for the people use.
No, I'm not talking about converting the unit. I'm just talking
about
outside.
benches,
Yeah,
you know,
outside, like
Park benches and stuff?
park benches and stuff like that.
Oh, we can provide a couple of benches, that's not a problem.
So what I'm talking about is amenities such as benches and things like that. I'm not asking you to convert one of your units, because
Right,
that's
right,
expensive.
okay.
But
I wish I hadn't suggested that, frankly.
But I think providing amenities, I think it's always good when you have,
I agree.
26 residents,
We had
live
them,
there.
we had bicycle racks mentioned, we're happy to do that.
Yep.
If street furniture is something that you'd like us to look into, we can have our landscape architect add some of those amenities to the plan. And I agree that that would be a nice amenity.
We do intend in the north side, we thought we would put one of the small pavilion there. But I'm afraid that maybe that the neighbor don't like it, so that's why.
That's why we took that out, because it encroaches into that space.
Yep.
And we thought it was better to put plantings in that location. But the street furniture, Bish Schlesinger is a very talented landscape architect, and I'm sure he can come up with something that would achieve your objectives.
Right, that's a benefit for residents, they're walking, or,
Agreed.
because not everybody wants to go on a highway and walk on a highway,
True.
Granted, there are sidewalks there, but within, yep. I think that's about it. Any other questions? Anyone?
Just get around that. It's
No,
I know.
we
I know
don't
that
need to,
the
we
biggest
not depend
concern
on
we heard in
the
the
filtration,
previous,
we depend on the pipe, yeah.
Had to do with,
Wait, so
I
let
think I can convince him of that.
in the previous public hearings, the adjacent property owners are most concerned with the visual effect on their property. And I'm just a little concerned with it will look nice in the spring and the fall and in the summer, but you're gonna have a good 3-4 months with trees with no leaves on them. And I'm just thinking that, without getting into details, that efforts to have a more permanent visual buffer where there's an adjacent property owner, so you could be selected.
What if they were conifers? What if the trees were?
Well, that's what I'm saying, a conifers.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
I can only find like
It's a reasonable
four
point.
conifers on here.
It's a reasonable point.
Is that, in fairness to the neighbors, is that who have a direct view into the property, that you give them more 365-day a year visual buffer plantings.
I agree. And we're happy to change it to mature conifers.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That's it.
I just
Can I-
have
can I
one
ask
question.
one?
Go, you go first.
Oh, are there going to be pets allowed in here?
Pets allowed?
Animals?
You're pet friendly?
Usually, we don't like it. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I just asked because if you're going to say yes, then I would say an area so the
No,
pets
but I
can
think
relieve
that's,
themselves.
that's not our,
It's not.
not our jurisdiction, so.
Okay.
We'll think about that, though.
No, just- If you do, but if you don't, then.
No, I realize it's not a requirement, but it's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I just have one last question
Sure.
about the electrical service. You're going from overhead to underground, and you're going to put a transformer in. Did you talk about screening of that transformer?
The transformer, we're still going round and round with Eversource, but wherever the transformer is, the transformer will be screened. It will most likely be along the southerly border of the site, right where the road turns into the site. There's an existing pole there, and that's where we think we're going underground, right there.
Okay. Obviously, decoration and bollards, so, because it's near the road?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, have a motion, please.
Motion to approve the site plan for ELF LLC proposing a 26-unit multifamily development at 2094 Solstein Highway off Bellows Circle. The following conditions: that the developer commits 10% of their project to affordable or three deed-restricted units, that all staff comments from the September 14th memo are taken care of, and staff is satisfied that the fire marshal's comments and all the testing and modifications that need to be done to appease the fire marshal and fire suppression and safety are satisfied, that EV chargers are installed on the project to meet the spec of 10% of all parking spaces, or the infrastructure for those EV chargers. And the adding of bike racks and/or other street furniture for the buildings, for amenities for the project, as well as a sitting space and/or bus shelter closer to the Silas Dean Highway for bus and pedestrian traffic.
I'll second that.
Conifers?
I'll second that.
You,
Did you include the conifers in?
well, we're gonna talk about it now,
Oh,
because
okay.
we're in
All right.
thing, so,
Sorry about that.
Go
it's all
ahead.
right. So.
Motion's
you-
seconded.
You seconded, so
Now
now.
we discuss.
So I just throw out there that we just add to increase, to apply, to increase the use of conifers in areas that are
Deciduous.
visible from adjacent property owners.
To provide 365
To provide
coverage. like
annual,
And-
an annual vegetative buffer.
That's okay with me.
It's okay with me?
All right, any other comments, discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Agenda item D, site plan application, Rocky Hill Parks and Recreation Department, Raymond Carpentino, town manager, proposing to add 6 pickleball courts, plus related improvements, walkways, benches, landscaping, and drainage to the rear of Elmridge Park, the property located at 376 Elm Street in an R20 zoning district, ID 09-542.
Can I ask a question about this? This was, this was tabled last week by the open space people?
Yes,
For-
we asked, it was tabled because they have to, by their regulations, they have to receive an application. They had a minor presentation, and then they tabled it. We did ask Craig Bowman, our Director of Parks and Recreation, to come to this meeting so he could do his presentation. We cannot take action on it.
Okay,
But
that's what I was
this way,
concerned about.
you do save time, and next month it can be quicker on his part.
Okay, that's all I'm concerned about. Anything else?
Good evening, Craig Bowman, Parks and Recreation Director. I will start off by saying that I am not a licensed landscape architect or engineer, so I can answer a lot of questions about pickleball and programming and location and parks. Any specifics to drainage, and, well, I can answer some of those as well, but the nitty-gritty stuff, our architect is not here. So I just want to kind of lead you guys into how we came about with this proposal here. We did receive grant funds from the state a few years back for some Elmridge Park improvements. Too loud? Sorry, I have a coach's voice.
That's okay, that's fine.
My voice, I really don't need this, but, so what ended up happening was we did hire, an architect to do some conceptual master planning for Elmridge Park. From a programming perspective, there was an area of the park that needed some love, specifically where the old Players Field was, which is just south of the existing pool, as well as the skate park towards the back of the park as you head up towards the dog park and the amphitheater. Both were very underutilized spaces. And as a result of the conceptual master plan, we were able to come up with some ideas for some new programming opportunities in the park. So basically what we've done is come up with a pickleball proposal for 6 courts. Just north of the old skate park and some of the back parking lots there. And what ends up happening, and one of the reasons why we ended up going to wetlands too, is because, so the road is here. We are proposing a rain garden for the drainage of the post-tension concrete courts. And so that is how, one of the reasons why we had to present to the Wetlands Commission last week. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar or not, but pickleball is probably one of the fastest growing sports and recreational activities in our country right now. I can tell you, in the community center, we do offer some indoor programming opportunities, more so for the seniors during the day, but we are strapped for space. The tennis center down the road has some indoor space as well, but what we're looking to do here is to be able to offer this. We also have pickleball lines at Maxwell Park, just so everyone's aware, but they're portable nets, so they do share with tennis players as well. So what we're looking to do here is make this an isolated place where you can go and play pickleball. We have hired WBA Group to be our design consultant and landscape architect for this project. They, he does his bidding kind of by a price per linear foot. So that's also going to tell us whether or not we can get 6 courts. The goal is 6, but it might be 5, all depending on the dollar amount. So I'd be happy to answer any questions any of you might have. Just so everyone's aware, the skate park is no longer. We demoed that in the fall in-house, and we also removed the fencing for the old softball field that had not been used. And now it is more of a open green space. So the courts would pretty much be partially in left field of what the old softball field was. So, as far as the results from the meeting last week with wetlands, there was some confusion with the flagging of the wetlands, so we are going to hire a soil scientist to come out, flag the wetlands again. We're in contact with them as of today, actually, and so they're going to delineate the wetlands and just check for any drainage structures. And then there's also just a minor thing with the vegetation in the rain gardens, the type of species of plants to put in there. They wanted more clarification from our landscape architect for what to put in there. So, but it's my understanding that this is also a good location for it because of the contours of the land, and it kind of pitches perfectly into this area where the rain garden is. So again, I can answer any questions you might have, and if there's any questions I can't answer, we can table those to next month, hopefully, when the architect is able to come with me.
Can you just talk about the construction material and the
Sure.
what it is and future maintenance and things like that? I mean, just
Sure. So they're actually proposing it's a post-tension concrete system. This is the new, I would say like the newest technology of court systems, not only for tennis, but for pickleball, basketball courts. And it's really meant to combat the harsh winters that we have in New England. These systems usually, they pretty much say it's about 25 to 30 years before you see any surface cracking. So, it's designed to kind of move with the frost heaves and stuff underground, and it's a pretty safe, and it's going to hold up a lot better in New England than like an asphalt court, for instance. And there's also a special acrylic coat on the top as well. But it's, it's a similar system as far as the base, how deep they have to go. But it is a post-tension concrete system. And that's one of the, just so everyone knows, we have some asphalt courts at Maxwell, for example, and that's exactly what they are. They're asphalt. So, every 3, 4, 5 years at times you have to come in, you have to go on the concrete or the asphalt, and you have to saw cut all the cracks out. And then you put a new surface on the top, but what it doesn't do is prevent the cracking from continuing under the ground. So it fixes the surface for a 5-6 year period, sometimes less, sometimes more, but it doesn't really prevent the cracking from underground continuing, if that makes any sense.
And our soils are appropriate for this type of.
Yes, yes. And this is really, like I said, the newest technology that everyone's going to at this point. It is more expensive, but the lifespan, I mean, when you asked about maintenance, there's really not a lot of maintenance. Other than us having to blow off the cords, maybe remove the netting during the wintertime. There's really, we're not going to be removing snow or anything in the wintertime. People don't go out and play when it's cold. Well, some people might. It's a very passionate crowd. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Will it be lit?
No. As of now, no, it will not. There's not sufficient funds from the grant that would be able to light it, but it's something we would consider for the future. But people might play all night.
Yeah. This abuts the existing parking lot. Is there any changes to that parking lot?
The existing parking lot, no. We do hope to, at some point, convert the old skate park, reclaim the asphalt there in-house with our Public Works Community Development Department, just to add some more parking spots as well.
And then my final question is that this is a typical chain link fence all around it with just like doors, like with the little latch or whatever?
Yes. And I'm going to toy around with some ideas about, potentially, and that could be a 4-foot high fence. We're hoping for a 6-foot high fence at least. But, there's new systems with how these courts are programmed and how they're, I guess you could say, rented. So I'm going to look at all kinds of ideas and whether or not there's, pay for play, or if you're a non-resident, you pay for play. If you're a resident, there's a code. We're going to look into a lot of different possibilities. But in most cases, it's kind of going to be open to the public, just like a lot of other places are. But what ends up happening with that, and I know I'm kind of going off a little bit, but you want to time limits. We don't have park rangers that go around and police this at all times. I don't have that money in our budget. So, you're kind of on an honor system. So that's why it might make sense to look into some different possibilities for the gates.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Any other questions?
I'm just going to piggyback on the parking question. The adjacent parking has ample handicap parking, but is there curbing between the two parking lots? Like, is there accessibility from the handicap parking over to this entrance? It looks like, the way it's drawn up here, it looks like a curb. It's a double line.
I don't know off the top of my head. I can definitely look into that.
I know that lot was put in when the accessible field was put in.
Yes.
So this was particularly
Designed for the
geared
other
for that accessible field.
But there's no handicap, I understand there's no money in the budget for handicap or doing anything in the parking lot, but I just wasn't sure if there was the ability to walk, to wheel through if you're gonna get to the next parking lot. Do you see where it shows a handicap parking in the bottom left?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
I don't,
That looks like a curve.
I think it's all open. I'm pretty sure that's all open. I don't think there's a barrier there.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right.
Oh, that's it?
Craig, I think it's a great plan. I don't want to sound like a Grinch or anything like that. Pickleball is by far the fastest growing sport ever. I'm an avid tennis player and pickleball player, so I think it'd be great for the town. I'm going to make a suggestion, and I know funds are always a concern, and I know you want to maximize the amount, but for longevity, post-tension concrete is by far the way to go, and you're spot on with 25 to 30 years. If funds would allocate for this, even if it was reduced to 4, because I've seen facilities like this, but to have an open pavilion covering even 4 courts. What happens is, especially for a senior population, you have coverage from the sun, you have coverage from the rain, from snow on mild days. I know funds are always a concern, I get it, but I think it'd be more advantageous for the town to have a reduced amount of courts, but to utilize them even in inclement weather, even through Parks and Rec, with kids during the summer. If you can utilize that, it might be worth thinking about it or entertaining it.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can look into.
Yeah, it's
Shade
very
structures.
popular to have some type of coverage, not fully enclosed, it's open on all 4 sides.
Yep.
But to have a cover over even for the courts, because some of the commission might not know this, but 4 courts are actually the size of 1 tennis court. So that gives a little bit of perspective on 4 pickleball courts can actually fit onto 1 tennis court. So it kind of gives you a depiction that to cover 4 of those is not out of the realm. It's not a massive pavilion. But I've seen it done, and a lot of people like that option, where on a rainy day, you can still go out and utilize those courts. So it might just get more play time, something to kick around and think about.
Yeah, they also have some newer like structures that aren't as like steel, and they're like they
Different-
almost look like sails.
Yeah, different canopy cover.
Yeah, they have a different canopy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's something we can look
Something to
into.
think about. I think something like that, having 6 courts is great, but even if funds could allocate it, maybe 4 courts with a cover, it's just something to think about. I think it'd be worthwhile to entertain.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
And no questions.
I'm all set.
Are there any liability? Let's say a couple of guys are out playing and one sprains his back or something. Is that something that the town would be liable for, or is that just it's got nothing to do with planning and zoning, it's just a curiosity?
I think that's the inherent risk of going and, playing. I mean, it's no different than
Tennis courts.
Yeah, it's no different than a tennis court over at Maxwell. It's no different than, jumping on a field to play. So,
I mean, again, it's not our authority or
Yeah.
responsibility, but it's just a curiosity. What's that?
I just had a quick question, Craig. Is there such a thing, because I don't know pickleball all that well, is there such a thing as like a handicap level fence or like net? Like this will be handicapped accessible for wheelchairs? Is there any difference in like an accessible pickleball court for a wheelchair?
I don't think so. I think it's the same level no matter what.
Just curious.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a low net to begin with. But I can't answer that with 100%
I just didn't
certainty.
know, do they need more room? Is there more space, more radius, space turning? Like, I don't know. That's why I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't know how much they would actually, because the court's smaller, the amount of like lateral movement. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I know that we do rent out to Special Olympics in the spring and summer for about 6 or 8 weeks, And there's no modifications that we make for the courts at Maxwell, but that's also for tennis.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, there's no changes.
I don't think
Even
there's
in
any changes.
adaptive tennis or pickleball, it's no changes to the net height, size of court, it's the same.
Same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially with the pickleball courts, they're smaller courts, so you're not,
No room.
yeah, you're not moving around as much.
Okay.
I think just follow up on what Commissioner Hussey was saying. I think it's a good idea. Maybe what you have is future expansion that you put in, you say, stress, concrete and stuff, you can put 2 more later on. But if you have covered, I think you'll get more usage out of it.
Well, the good thing about this project too is the way he's bidding it out, he is bidding it per, I think it's linear foot, he said. Maybe I've got that wrong. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't maybe put that in as an ad alternate too, just to get a number on it, just to see how much it would be.
And if it permits, maybe you do half covered and half open, something like that. I mean, I don't know, there are a lot of options here, Once you have add deduct in your contract, in your bid.
The seniors will never leave though. They love it. It's great. It's awesome.
I mean, I know we are getting
So
off.
intense. No, it's we have
Finding-
so much demand, even for the gym.
Yep.
There's a lot of demand. And we don't have enough space to be able to meet the demand, at least from an indoor perspective.
Yep. And I mean, I think you touched upon for like policing and things like that and time constraint and all that, but I think that's for future, that's not for here. But something to think about, out of towners coming here and playing versus, when.
Yep.
There's a lot of logistic things.
Put a senior in charge. I had just one more question. So on pickleball courts, is there like a bench or something so that people can sit if they're tired? Like,
So we did propose to add some benches to the outside. You don't really want to put them between the courts here, just the way the courts are laid out. So we have proposals to put the benches outside.
No benches in the kitchen.
No benches in the kitchen.
Yeah, and we do, there are, we're not gonna, I don't want to put any, unless there was like a fencing between the courts, but we're not planning on doing that because that's just gonna add more cost to it as well.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
See you next
Hope
month.
to see you next month.
Yes.
Do we need to do anything with this, or just?
You need
because
to
it's- We didn't open
motion.
anything, we didn't motion.
Motion to table.
Motion to table.
Motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
E, proposed zoning and regulation amendment, Town of Rock Hill to add section 2B, defined terms, electric vehicle charging station, electric component assembly or cluster of component assemblies designed specifically to charge batteries within electric vehicles by permitting the transfer of electric energy to a battery or other storage device in an electric vehicle. Related definitions, direct current fast charging station, an electric vehicle charging station that utilizes direct current energy 40 kilowatts or greater. Level 2 electric vehicle charging station, an electric vehicle charging station that supplies 208 or 240 volt alternating current. Public electric vehicle charging station, electric vehicle charging station located at publicly available parking space. Number 2, add to modify section 7B21, number of parking spaces to add. The commission shall require with each new construction of a commercial building or multi-unit residential building with 30 or more parking spaces for cars or light-duty trucks to include the electric vehicle charging infrastructure capable of supporting level 2 electric vehicle charging stations or direct current fast charging stations in at least a minimum of 10% of required parking spaces.
Have a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments? Yes.
So I guess this is for staff. Should we be concerned about appearance of the transformers? So as an example, the one they just built on Route 3 in the Arch parking lot, they put the stations in the parking spaces, which was expected, but then they placed multiple transformers alongside of them. So should there be any restrictions on moving the transformers outside of the frontage?
No. You say the frontage.
So like there's a frontage where you can't build, but obviously you can put parking spaces. Should we be moving the transformers back? Because they could have moved those transformers 40 feet back behind the building line and then just fed those stations.
Well, what we're finding is people want them typically now in front of the buildings. That's what we're hearing. We're getting
Correct.
requests now for it. They haven't come in as of this point in time, but they're looking to put them immediately in front of buildings. The thing that we're concerned about is some of them, they want to put the video screens on, like they have at some gas stations.
Right.
Which we don't want that.
Right, I guess my concern is that these oversized transformers to power these, should they be put further back instead of,
So to Commissioner Glico's point, just a question, should we add something to the effect of major versus minor, and they have to come anything?
Well, we'll be discussing major
No, I
versus
mean,
minor.
yeah, that's what I
You might
mean.
want to,
Should we say that, EV charging stations or anything that's not adjacent to a building or whatever,
That would be added in our next
we can,
discussion, yeah.
should we
Well, when we
address
get-
it there, and
Yeah.
this just a definition and a broad definition, we can address it as a major and minor?
yeah, that's why I
I
was
agree,
asking.
I
think
agree with
the
what you're
appearance-
saying, but we need to have, we don't have it in our plan, and that puts it in our plan.
This is just allowing the stations.
Yeah.
Then
Then we can say if it's a major or
way
minor.
it's
and-
approved, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a method to it, we just have to get to it next, and F.
which is the next item
Yes.
on the agenda.
No, but it's a good point, at least just so we remember.
Yeah,
when
we
do
have
it.
to, we
Right.
need to address it, yeah.
Any other comments? Seeing None.
Can I make a comment, or I'm not?
No,
Greg, did we make a motion?
yeah, we made a
Then you
motion,
can't make a
right?
motion, then you
We
can't.
made a motion,
We made a motion.
yeah. No.
All right.
All right, all in favor of motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion passes.
F, discussion, finalize language and set public hearing date for the modified language to sections 9C63 and 9C64 of the Rocky Hill zoning regulations on major and minor changes to a site plan.
What you have in your packet is what was the original regulations as they currently exist. Then, based upon a meeting we had back in August, there was that change where I believe it was Commissioner Lecco was stating that now we can do away with the major changes. And these are minor, and anything else is major. So we eliminated that as an alternative. Another alternative is put forth on in 829, where we took some of the major changes and kind of reworked it into the minor. So if you'd like, I can just quickly read what the minor changes are, and then we'll talk about the EV charging as well. A, minor grading changes that do not significantly impact drainage patterns or system as determined by the town engineer. Minor changes in pavement or pavement markings, increase in parking capacity by 10% or less. These are minor. Reduction of landscaping or open space by 10% or less. And keep in mind, there's checks and balances on open space percentages and impervious coverage, so that will help here. Location or relocation of underground utilities. And oftentimes, the utility will dictate where that's going to be going.
I'm sorry.
Location of
You can do it.
and screening of utility equipment. Oftentimes, once again, the utility companies will be dictating where that utility equipment goes. But the screening, it seems clearly evident to me from what I'm hearing from the commission, this evening and in the past that the screening is to be a combination of fencing and vegetation. Location of directional or informational signage, substitution of plant species, evergreen to evergreen, deciduous to deciduous, and/or evergreen due to availability or disease. A change of use where parking requirements per regulations remain the same and the intensity of on-site activity of the new use by its inherent nature is similar to or less than that of the prior use. We oftentimes have requests for a change of use, and we look at our parking requirements. If it's the same parking requirements and the use is either the same intensity or less, we would approve it as a minor change. But if you may have the same parking requirements, but it may have certain times a day where they may have, whether it be like a funeral home, for example, they may have a lot of traffic.
Yep.
Whereas another use with the same type of parking requirement may not. To me, that's an increase in intensity because you're having more traffic. Minor expansions of a building so not as to increase the residential density, if applicable, and to not increase the number of parking spaces required or the number of stories. Any other minor technical change that does not materially detract from the original development concept. And then we added in any request to change a condition of approval imposed by the commission will require commission action. We just put that right in there, so. And then you have the flip side as far as major changes, a change in use after commission approval and prior to construction for a new development. Reduction of the landscaping or open space area exceeding 10%. Expansion or reconstruction of any building. Significant changes in grading so as to affect drainage patterns or drainage system as determined by the town engineer. Any other major change that may be construed to detract materially from the original development concept.
Looks good to me.
We want to talk about EV charging stations.
Oh.
Yeah, I personally think that we need to add EV charging. We just need to decide the scope of it. Like if it's one station, obviously it's minor, but if it's like a Tesla station like that was put in on Route 3,
Yep.
what's the,
But what's
what's the balance of what we do? I mean, what's the definition of a commercial charging station versus one that is required, that we just approved for like a shopping plaza? You know, if someone's gonna put one on a shopping plaza, then is that a minor and we don't
I would think
care
so,
about
yeah.
it versus what?
Do we?
Maybe a question to staff is how do you determine the size of a commercial? How do you determine what a commercial charging station is? One for money, one that accepts money for any charging station that accepts money for use has to come as a major mod. I mean,
The first one is a simple addition to an existing parking lot business or whatever, where it's not being created to be a charging station. It's just going to be more, I don't want to say convenience, but sort of like a convenience for people that use that property.
but they could,
now.
like, for example,
So have
I mean,
People come in.
Tesla has a design, and you see one in Rocky Hill, but other companies have designs that are just as, you know, I'm not gonna say gaudy, but they're just as, without any decoration or without any landscaping or whatever it is, they can still put those in.
Yeah.
And they could just line spaces.
Well,
So my concern is that these things get out of control, and then we
Right.
have what's going on Route 3, where there's people and kids hanging around or running around on Route
Do we-
3, and they're going next door and getting
That-
their drinks, and there's garbage overflowing everywhere.
Isn't that Tesla charging station explicitly for charging, not as adjunct to the business that already exists.
That I don't know.
I think it's a standalone.
I think because this is still new technology, I think what I would say is let's put it, and or anything that's related to charging comes to commission, at least until everybody gets comfortable and, because it's brand new, we don't know the sizes and all that, so I think,
I'm fair, that's
You know,
fair.
It'd be difficult to determine if it's,
yeah,
how it's being used.
We have to see it,
yeah, so let,
each individual case.
let everything comes.
How can it
yeah.
all come to the, I mean, what if somebody wants to just put, I mean, this is all relative
Well,
to a site plan application,
To
right?
put it in-
Special permit for
well,
a site-
this
I mean,
is
if somebody wants to
addition.
put one in their house, in the garage,
The house is different.
yeah,
This is,
Residential is different.
right, right.
Don't,
But-
yes, we don't want to confuse, but I think because this is new technology and all that, I think we have to get a comfort level as to what is minor, what is major, and how do we haven't seen everything yet.
and we're not going to get
So-
100 a year either.
No.
'Cause it's going to be,
No, it would be a
Every
couple
few
of,
months.
So we're considering that a major?
I would, correct?
yeah,
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 I
yeah, if
think
you
so.
consider major and,
So, to that point, we're eliminating if it's not minor, if it's not minor, then it's major, and we're gonna itemize. We've come to the conclusion that we're gonna itemize, and then we just gotta make sure we get everything in major and minor.
Well, the point behind not simply eliminating the
major
major,
language.
because it should be, if they don't fall in item 3, then they,
it's major.
Okay.
but one of the issues that we've had over the last year and a half, or 2 years, is that the way the regulations were worded and the way they were, the way they were looked at, it was very vague and subject to quite a bit of subjective interpretation.
Sure.
By leaving this the way it is and clarifying this up here, we're actually eliminating, I don't want to say personal opinion, but let's say personal
Yeah.
opinion, or someone's opinion about a situation.
Sure.
This
Subjective.
actually defines it,
Subjective versus, yeah.
right, it's this or it's this.
Yeah.
And that's why we
I just wanna
added,
make sure we're eliminating this, and we're using the 829 one.
right.
Yes,
So why
that
not?
whatever, these are minor, and
Yeah.
if everything is not covered, that's major.
Yeah? So the-
Simple.
No, that's not what we're saying.
No,
No, we're leaving section 4 in here, we're not eliminating it. That was the discussion.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting at. There's two different things we're doing here. And we're saying that we're putting this one away, and we're gonna go to modification of August 29th
Right.
with the adding an F for EV charging stations.
Well, we move E down and then make it a new E. Would be the EV charging stations,
No, we've
So it'll
got,
be a 4F,
yeah.
yeah.
see, this is what we discussed in August, is wiping this out because everything was covered here. But this explains it without any equivocation. We know this could be a minor, but we know that these are major. It's just making it a lot clearer for everybody that's reading it, implementing it, and actually interpreting it on the staff level.
And there may be some legislation that may be coming down the pike, or maybe already existence, that talks about EV charging stations. That's where this came from. That may dictate how we act on it or
We
don't
can modify
act
it
on
then, yeah.
Yeah, because they may come to the point where it says, you're going to just allow it.
So then,
So that may come.
F would
F-
simply be
Yeah,
addition of any
so-
charging station,
Yeah.
construction of any charging
Yeah.
stations, period. No definition, just,
Commercial charging stations,
right, I'm sorry.
yeah. Commercial EV charging stations are not residential. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Well, multi-unit residential. That's what it says here. Where? Commercial building or multi-unit
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah, the way it's worded in
In our reg.
what
Sure.
we just approved.
F.
Yeah.
Now, can we now set a hearing, or do we have to review this again with that F added, or?
No.
You do not have to review it again.
Great, okay.
Do not review it
Yeah,
again.
no.
Unless you want.
Let's bring it to the hearing.
Please don't.
When's our next meeting?
October 17th, but we also have to do we have to send it for CROG.
October
it would be-
18th, right?
So it would be,
1817.
October 18th,
we'd either have to have, I believe it's the 17th.
18th.
18th
It's
is
the
Wednesday.
18th? It's Wednesday, the 18th?
18th
Yeah.
Wednesday.
But we
Oh,
can't
I
get
am
it
off
by
again.
then, right?
So unless you want to have a meeting that following week.
What's
The
what's
following
what's
Wednesday,
the
or you
CROG
wanna-
turnaround time?
Because we have to have a 35-day notice. So
I'd say do it in November.
Let's just schedule for, can we go 2
Yeah.
meetings out? Let's just do
Yeah,
it for
we
November
can go
then.
now.
Yeah.
Whatever the November meeting is. What's the November meeting?
It's November 15th.
11:15.
There is a grammar check here.
Uh-oh.
that's fine. No, that's fine, thank you.
It's with
It says
AI.
any request to change to.
Where are we?
Any
change.
request to change a condition of.
Right.
You got to, change to,
Oh, okay, that's okay.
so delete the to after change.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Don't want to have to, another reason to have to update it.
No.
That would be a,
All right, motion.
Motion to approve the language as discussed for the modification on August 29th, 2023, to include minor and major changes and the language discussed at this meeting for public hearing on November 15th, 2023.
Second that.
thank you.
All in favor?
Oh, well, as I said as
As-
discussed, but we
F.
It's,
assume that's F is EV charging stations.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
4F, yep. All in favor of motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
We might have this done.
All right. Item 6,
Thank you.
any other business zoning enforcement?
The chart was on the,
I think you took mine. You took my whole thing. Even the map.
Here.
oh, yeah. We have an updated zoning map with all the changes. Unfortunately, the font is very small. The size of the map.
Oh, you want the one that I didn't mark?
And then we have a new table also.
That's a
It
question.
was effective 9/15. So if there's any questions on that, we continue to get complaints daily. The town did interview, just so you're aware, the town did interview 2 applicants. There were only 4 applicants. There's a few job openings in the area for similar positions. 4 applicants were received, 2 applicants were interviewed, and those 2 applicants are coming in tomorrow afternoon to sit down with myself and the department head, Steve Sopelak, for final interviews.
We have at Carbone's a temporary liquor permit. Is that something that you can do administratively to? Okay, that's all I have on that one.
It's a one-day specialty event, for example. I just signed one, and I don't even know if that came on here yet.
Okay.
For Elmridge Park, I don't think that's on here yet. For Festa Italiana, which is it's coming up on the 30th. It's a temporary liquor permit. I don't have, she didn't copy the second page of this, so I don't know if it's
Yeah.
double-sided on this
Good.
one.
We got 2 pages.
No, there's a page missing.
Yeah, it goes from C.
There's a page missing.
Oh.
There's a page missing in this.
Whatever.
So, but Festa Italiana, I just signed a temporary liquor permit. It's from 12 to 6 on the
Yeah, we have to
30th.
check now.
It's not corrected. I just drove by.
So on this 9th,
I will send out the
that corrected?
middle page.
Parking is cleaned up. The sidewalk and the handicap accessibility and the material in the back is still all there.
Okay.
But that's been approved, that's not that wasn't part of our application that we denied, and that's been there.
Right, there
That's
was,
something that,
No, I wasn't talking about the application. I was saying
Right.
the violations.
Which,
I don't
where
think
are
they're
we?
violations.
no, that's
Blocking the
Is-
sidewalk
is
for
hardware.
handicap accessibility is allowed?
I don't know that the handicap accessibility is blocked, but
I
anyway.
think town was going to look at that
Because
aspect
they were
of the storage, making sure that it's handicap
The
accessible.
violation that was, are you talking 945 Cromwell?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That, we dealt with it as, with respect to that which was stored in the parking
Right.
area. With respect to what is stored on the sidewalk, there is requirements under building codes for access in a certain depth or width that is required. And that's,
That's a separate issue, is
Separate.
that?
yeah.
There's nothing in the parking lot, I don't think, anymore.
No,
Oh, that's
they-
gone.
they got
Only
rid
in
of
the
that.
rear.
Yeah.
So the outdoor storage in the rear is acceptable?
No. No. They have, I know they drop off items, and they're supposed to be moving them inside. So if it's there for a period of time, it's a violation. I know we had problems with them in the past, then it got better. It's kind of a cyclical thing with that.
Seasonal,
No, no,
What was that?
seasonal.
that's not a seasonal.
I know, I'm kidding.
seasonal
Minor modifications.
All right, minor mod, I think we discussed modification, so there is nothing there. Plan implementation committee, I think
we got a meeting
we got
coming up.
meeting coming up.
Yeah, because we didn't have one last time.
October 4th, right?
Because
October
nobody showed
4th.
up.
Yep,
Yes, no
October
one participated last time. But I was here.
Well, you had the meeting.
What?
You had the meeting then.
No, but I was here.
You see that 10-4 meeting?
Why?
It's going to be,
Good?
yeah.
Okay, good. So we will have a meeting on the 4th, discussing affordable housing. The affordable housing ordinance has passed. I'm waiting for the codification of it so we can get an ordinance number, so I can tie it to the fillable application form, and we can get that out to people. So that's in the works. We're discussing sidewalks again. We have a little bit more up, on the way of updates for sidewalks with respect to Century Hills, Glastonbury Avenue, Home Street. Discussing POCD, that needs to be updated. There was a thought that was floated, and I talked to Ray about it, about community resilience workshops put on by Sustainable CT. And I reviewed a report that was done by them for the city of Norwalk, Connecticut. And it has a lot of good information. I will get that out to everybody as a thought of kicking off our POCD. There'll be a lot of stakeholders involved.
Isn't that due in 2025?
Correct.
Okay. So we're not
We're
up
not
against-
behind the
Okay,
eight
yeah,
ball on
that's
this.
what I thought. We're
good.
The last one was done in 2015, so we got.
Yep.
Okay.
We're good.
all right.
Legislation.
Legislation, nothing.
Well,
Oh,
I
the,
sat in, I sat in on a meeting, we have training too, but I'll get to that. I sat in on a meeting for, with CCM, there's a CCM Policy Committee on Land Use, Transportation, Infrastructure, and Economic Development. And the memo that Brian O'Connor put together from that meeting is in your packet. There was a big push from shoreline towns for Shoreline East and ridership and mass transit increases. And that mass transit is certainly something that can translate well up here too. There's a need for increased ridership. But the main focus, it seemed, for everyone involved with that meeting was affordable housing. And they talked about tax abatement ordinances for affordable housing and how are we going to create affordable units, because there's all this discussion on fair share of affordable housing, and there was discussion on taking all the units that the state needs and dividing it up among the towns based upon population, which doesn't seem like that won't work. Some of the people in the meeting, the more rural communities, were saying, well, we have 5 acre zoning, why should we be doing this? Some communities want to do tax abatements. There are some ordinances out there for tax abatements for affordable housing, so I'm gathering those together to see if that's something that the town wants to even look at. As you can see, when people do come in, we are getting some when people come in. I mean, we as staff do ask for affordable units when people come in, but as we get affordable units, we're also getting market rate units, so our percentage actually is going down, and we're seeing a trend there's a decrease in CHFA mortgages and a decrease in USDA mortgages. So that has taken our percentage down from like 5.13% to like 4.93%. So our percentage has gone down, and it's attributed to the decrease in the CHFA mortgages. Yeah. So,
I'll never catch up.
no. So I'd like to propose at a future meeting a regulation for what's called middle housing, and I'd like to propose a regulation for some of the properties along Solestein Highway to have conversions if they give us affordable housing, and maybe add either density bonus or something for that. So that's coming down the road. So that, as far as legislation goes, and these are just ideas to bring forth to the state legislation in the next go-around. There is something in the packet on training, and we do need to report to the state for commission training. Commissions require 4 hours of training. And I ask that when you do the training, you submit your certificates to me. That way I can put them in a file and I can send them on when it's time to report. So we do have to
Just
report.
Has everybody registered?
I did one 2 weeks ago tomorrow night, 2 weeks ago from tomorrow night. You do it at home, it's an hour and a half. You can sit and drink coffee. You don't have to be on camera. It's very easy. But they ask you questions throughout, so you have to pay attention. You can't just put it on, go out shopping, and then come back an hour and a half later and say you're done. So you have to pay attention. But it's very simple. It's really an easy thing to accomplish. And there's another one, actually, there's one tomorrow night.
Yeah.
There's
which
one
is the one
tomorrow,
that I
7 to
did
8:30, and there's one November 16th, 7 to 8:30.
Well, that's the second session.
Yeah, but that's, I mean,
The first one,
So I have registered for this, so, for both.
I have that on tape. So I expect your certificates. when
Yeah.
you're done.
I got,
yeah, and the tricky thing is you're required to get 4 hours, and they do them all hour and a half each, so you got to actually required to get 4.5 hours. It's just kind of sneaky. But it's very,
Did that 8-hour one.
I know, Nancy's done.
I did that 8-hour
Nancy's
one.
You've done it
yeah,
all.
then you'll
Nancy's
have a
done.
problem.
8-hour one.
oh, wow.
Oh, Ed,
Are you
Done.
good for 2 years?
I'm good for 5 years, right?
And we have to have it done by the end of the year,
So
correct?
these are a
Correct.
must, so. No, you have to register, so I don't know if it's available.
Oh, they don't,
Yeah.
there's no limit.
Huh? There's no limit?
No, because you're not,
Because I register like,
it's Zoom. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so just
but make
do
sure
it.
they have your name and address and who you are, so you'll get your certificate.
because I think you have to register. You go in and type, and then you get the,
Yes. It's really
Anybody
neat.
want the electronic link, I'll gladly forward it on.
You sent it to us in an email.
Yep.
I know, but I'll do it again. If you need it again,
Just have to remember to go tomorrow.
See, I was planning on going tomorrow, thinking that it was the second session, but it's not. It's the one
No,
that I
it's
did
a
2 weeks
first.
ago, right?
There are two.
So I got to go in November.
okay.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Yeah, well, there's approved bills. Do you have any bills?
There's no bill.
No.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion passes.